Maybe we take this away.
Yeah.
I have 2 requests before I start. And if you don't like my requests, you're mad at me, you can get up and leave, it's okay. One request, and I understand you're not using it anymore, but that whole shelf is full of styrofoam plates and cups. Which anybody comes from the outside is gonna think you people have no knowledge of the environment, you don't care about the earth and what kind of standards you live in. That's the message it says. And also we have this nice big that's actually a 5-gallon bottle of water that dispenses drinks, and it's reusable. Which means we don't have to bring 50 or 100 of these every week. And they all get thrown in the ocean. Any of you kids here, there's no like teenagers here really. How old are you? 14, so our teenagers here, very good. Okay, so maybe do you know about the Great Pacific, what do they call it? The Great Pacific
Garbage patch.
Garbage Patch. You know, have you heard of that? They teach you that in school? You know, tell us what it is. What is it? That's good, that's very good. Any other questions? Yes, composed of what? Plastic. Floating in the ocean, in the Pacific Ocean. It's one of many, and it's said to be the size of the state of, I think, Texas. Plastic bottles, all from bottles that we drink, from toothpaste containers, from so many things. So we can't make a big, huge dent on the problems of the world, but we can at least not contribute to it. So I don't know who brought the water bottles. Thank you for doing that. But maybe in the future we can. There's so many places sell these bottles of water. It's probably cheaper, save money, and it's so much better for the environment. So maybe we can try to do that. I live too far. I live in Maryland, or I would bring them to you. It's a little too far from you. I drive every week not every week. Once a month I go to the water place. I refill all the bottles just to try to not waste. So
Not trying to be defensive, but I think that's what we would use. And then we ran into some challenges with the dispenser. So while we were trying to, take care of that, for Rath Yatras, because we couldn't carry it.
Rath Yatra may be a little bit.
So no, hear me out. So we had like about 8 or 10 of those that people donated.
Mm-hmm.
Now what do we do with those? So we are trying to consume that and get rid of it before we go back to this. And that's the history behind that. Now regarding the styrofoam sauce.
The other option is you could, if you need to use this for Rath Yatra, you put them in a closet, you save from then choose Rath Yatra and use this.
Right.
Anyway, you're talking to the co-founder of the ISKCON Environmental Initiative, so let's just stop. We're trying to have environmental policies, and we all can do better. And I myself, sometimes I have no choice, so I'm really, really thirsty. Okay, but we should minimize. We should minimize. We should try to do the best we can. One, because what we do has an effect. Just like the other day, it was September 20th was World Cleanup Day, so we're trying to encourage ISKCON communities around the world to take part. So I was very busy on the 20th, but I went out the other day, just for 1 hour, in a nice neighborhood, along a street that looked clean. It looked relatively clean. And in less than an hour, I filled 3 trash bags of trash. 3 big, big bags. That was in a clean neighborhood. In a nice area in Maryland, it's a fairly wealthy area. People are in this mood like the planet doesn't matter. I can drink bottles and, okay, I don't know where it goes, who cares? I can throw things out the window, hopefully none of us do that. But lots and lots and lots of people are doing that. And the long-term effect, and really you can think in one sense, what does it matter if I throw a bottle out the window? I was driving on the road in Kansas about maybe a year ago, visiting some temples there. And I was driving, and all of a sudden, like this car next to me, this bag of stuff flew by. Like, I thought, oh my gosh. She must have left her window open and the things like slid off the counter, the dashboard. And about 5 minutes later, another bag flew by. And I thought, that's not an accident. She's doing that on purpose. And I just drove up to, I don't know if I gave her a dirty look. I wanted to, but I figured she wouldn't know what I was upset about. But completely unconscious. So human life, just like we know, we're all, one of our principles is truthfulness, cleanliness, mercy, right? We want to be merciful. So we try to minimize the violence that's committed. One of the reasons we advocate vegetarianism and offering our food first to Krishna. But the world's full of people that fill up slaughterhouses. I lived in Colorado for a while. Sometimes 20 miles away, we'd be driving down the highway, you could tell there's a slaughterhouse nearby. Because you could smell the feedlot in the slaughterhouse, you could smell it. So people, they don't even think, you know, like, I was somewhere just recently, I couldn't believe it. I was on the freeway, I was gonna take a picture, but I couldn't stop. It said, it was like an advertisement for some crab house or something. And it said, just see the crab, how cute, now kill it. A big billboard. I thought, wow, it's becoming so blatant that they make fun of it, make fun of that, you know. How cute, now let's kill it, you know. And we all see they have these big signs of like, cows painting pictures on billboards saying, eat more chicken. Ha, 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 ha. But actually, what's going on there in people's brains? They're not thinking about the effect of their actions. And in that sense, in a very gross way, because they're just not thinking about the pain that's being given to other living entities. Somebody was telling me today about Americans, so many pets, I don't know, maybe somebody knows, how many millions of dogs and millions of cats and millions of pet fish and millions of everything else they have. So then they think, well, we can kill this one mercilessly, but this one's my friend. People aren't thinking very clearly. So we ourselves, we're trying to think more clearly, and we have to be careful that, like everyone else, most of those people are thinking, I'm a good person, I take care of my kids, I pay my taxes, I go to work, I'm a good father, I'm on my lawn, so I kill a few animals, what's the big deal? Because they're thinking this counts, but the other part of my life doesn't count. So in the same way, we have to be very careful. We don't think, well, I'm vegetarian, I chant Hare Krishna, I'm a devotee. What difference does it make if I pollute the environment a little bit? Because I'm doing this, I don't have to do that. Same thinking as a materialistic person that's not understanding that actually everything is Krishna's, everything's connected to him, and we should try to live in that way. So just some thoughts to share, thinking about that. So I was going to read two things, if we have time. First, a little bit from Bhagavad Gita. Probably heard this class on this many, many times. It's a very, very important verse. And then I meant to bring a hard copy of Teachings of Queen Kunti with me from Maryland, where I live, and I forgot it, but you have a paperback copy right here. So that was good. So I thought that was maybe Krishna's arrangement to hear a little bit of that. So this is a famous verse, 7:19. I'll just read the Sanskrit and then read the English and a little bit of the purport. Bhavunam jamanamante gyarabamam prapajante vasudeva savamiti samahatma sadurlabhaha. Krishna says, after many births and deaths, he who is actually in knowledge surrenders unto me, knowing me to be the cause of all causes and all that is. Such a great soul is very rare. Probably it's commentary, part of it. The living entity, that's us, while executing devotional service or transcendental rituals, after many, many births, may actually become situated in transcendental pure knowledge that the Supreme Personality of Godhead is the ultimate goal of spiritual realization. So we're still kind of like in between. We're not so convinced. We're trying to become convinced. Working on it. In the beginning of spiritual realization, while one is trying to give up one's attachment to materialism, raise your hand. Close your eyes, raise your hands. We have to look. Who's still trying to give up their attachment to materialism? My hand is up. Still working on that. There, in the beginning of this, trying to give up one's attachment to materialism, there is some leaning towards impersonalism. But when one is further advanced, he can understand that there are activities in spiritual life, and that these activities constitute devotional service. Realizing this, he becomes attached to the Supreme Personality of Godhead and surrenders to him. At such a time, one can understand that Lord Sri Krishna's mercy is everything, that he is the cause of all causes, and that this material manifestation is not independent from him. He realizes the material world to be a perverted reflection of spiritual variegatedness, and realizes that in everything there is a relationship with the Supreme Lord Krishna. Thus, he thinks of everything in relation to Vasudeva or Sri Krishna. Such a universal vision of Vasudeva precipitates one's full surrender to the Supreme Lord, Sri Krishna, as the highest goal. Such surrendered great souls are very rare. That's the Gita verse I can read. Then, because you have this Queen Kunti book there, I wanted to read this too. This is from text 12. And then we'll share a few thoughts and open for questions. Saveda kaschid bhagavan jikirshitam tabehamman asya ninnam vidam vadan nayasya kaschid daitos dikarhichit dveshyashchat yasmin vishama matirninam. O Lord, Queen Kunti's praying, it's from the Bhagavatam, no one can understand your transcendental pastime. So it's related topics about after many births and deaths, one understands Krishna. Prabhupada is saying through the process of purification and gradual surrender, we understand that he's the cause of our causes. So Kunti is saying the same point. No one can understand your transcendental pastimes, which appear to be human and so are misleading. You have no specific object of favor, nor do you have any object of envy. People only imagine that you are partial. Sometimes people think God doesn't like me, or sometimes people think God likes us, but he doesn't like you. But he likes me. He likes my church. He likes my tradition. He likes my sampradaya. He likes my ethnicity. He likes my country, like that. They think God is partial or impartial. And when they get something material, thank you, God. And when there's some problem comes, then they're angry with God. Sometimes even curse God. Or, Prabhupada says, materialistic person, when something good happens, they take credit. When something goes wrong, they blame God. That's called being partial. Prabhupada's commentary. The Lord's mercy upon the fallen souls is equally distributed. He has no one as the specific object of his hostility. The very conception of the personality of God as a human being is misleading. His pastimes appear to be exactly like a human being's, but actually they are transcendental without any tinge of material contamination. He is undoubtedly known as partial to his pure devotees, but in fact he is never partial, as much as the sun is never partial to anyone. By utilizing the sun rays, sometimes even the stones become valuable. Whereas a blind man cannot see the sun, although there are enough sun rays before him. Darkness and light are two opposite conceptions, but this does not mean that the sun is partial in distributing its rays. The sun's rays are open to everyone, but the capacities of the receptacles differ. Foolish people think that devotional service is flattering the Lord to get special mercy. Factually, the pure devotees who are engaged in transcendental loving service of the Lord are not a mercantile community. A mercantile house renders service to someone in exchange for values. The pure devotee does not render service unto the Lord for such exchange, and therefore the full mercy of the Lord is open for him. Suffering and needy men, inquisitive persons, or philosophers make temporary connections with the Lord to serve a particular purpose. When the purpose is served, there's no more relation with the Lord. A suffering man, if he is pious at all, prays to the Lord for his recovery. But as soon as the recovery is over, in most cases, the suffering man no longer cares to keep any connection with the Lord. The mercy of the Lord is open for him, but he is reluctant to receive it. That is the difference between a pure devotee and a mixed devotee. Those who are completely against the service of the Lord are considered to be in abject darkness. Those who ask for the Lord's favor only in a time of necessity are partial recipients of the mercy of the Lord. And those who are 100% engaged in the service of the Lord are the full recipients of the mercy of the Lord. Such partiality in receiving the Lord's mercy is relative to the recipient and is not due to the partiality of the all-merciful Lord. Namaste Saraswati Devi Gauravani Vicharini Nirvasesha Shinivadi Pastatani Santarani Jai Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhara Shivasa Gaur Bhaktivinoda Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama Rama Hare. So that, oh, thank you. I don't know who the applause is for. The applause for the flowers or the person speaking, or I don't know what. The person, whoever's speaking, they haven't started yet, so it can't be for them. The applause for the flowers for being so nice and so pretty. So, here in these verses, first thank you for allowing me to come here. As I mentioned earlier, I've been here once, but there was nobody else here. It was just Pandit Srivas and myself. He just came to show me the place, so it's nice to see the devotees here. And I live in Maryland, as I think was mentioned, and travel quite a bit, so very, very grateful to be able to come here and see the devotees here. We know when Prabhupada first came to America, there really were no devotees of Krishna. There might have been a few Vaishnavas that had come. But even previous to 1965, there was something called the Alien Exclusion Acts, which meant people from particularly Asia. And there were laws that were in place for a long, long time. America, just like now, is going through this period of anti-immigrant sentiment. We see that. It's not the first time. It comes and goes in waves. There's periods of time when America is very open, very welcoming to people of other nations, ethnicities, cultures, and there's times when they shut it up tight. So, previous to 1965, I think right in 65, they changed the laws at the time Prabhupada came. So there weren't very many people from India here, and there weren't certainly very many Vaishnavas here. But by Prabhupada's grace, now Vaishnavism has spread. At one time, Prabhupada went to Alachua, which is outside of Gainesville, which is in northern Florida. Gainesville is the home of the University of Florida, so it's kind of well known. But generally, Alachua is not so much well known. I think actually Prabhupada didn't go to Alachua, maybe went to Gainesville. But he mentioned his lecture. He was so happy to see the Vaishnavas there. And he said, Lord Chaitanya's mercies come to this far, out of the way, so many miles from Mayapur, like middle of nowhere place. So this is the mercy of Krishna, as we reading here from Prabhupada explaining this verse from Queen Kunti, that he's not partial to anyone. He actually makes himself available to everyone. And devotees, we gradually see this, how actually this whole world, Prabhupada explains in the 3rd chapter of Bhagavad Gita, that in this world there's 2 purposes. And one is to fulfill the desires of the individual souls who are trying to enjoy this material world. The second one is to gradually teach them through the process of sacrifice how to reconnect. So Prabhupada also would sometimes give the example, this is a big prison house. Like, welcome everybody, we're in the prison house. So sometimes we wonder, well, why are things like problematic here? You know, why does there have to be a Ukrainian war? I mean, why all those people? Like, we're all pretty secure. Most people in America are pretty secure. I don't know if anyone goes to bed at night wondering if your apartment building is going to blow up in the whole country. You may have other problems, maybe in unsafe neighborhoods and things like that, but not that unsafe. You know, so why is that? Why is that? Why is there conflict there? Why is it? And a lot of times in our communities, there's people. Today there were some doctors at the program, people that work in medical research. You're doing some of that with your old age research. He's researching old age. So someone might ask, why is there old age? You know, why is it? Well, it's just the way it is, but why? An intelligent mind asks why. Why is there conflict? Why is there old age? Why is it that sometimes you may go on a very nice vacation, say maybe you're a teenager, you go with your parents on a nice vacation, your mom and your dad, they spend a lot of money, they get a nice place by the beach, or they fly you all the way to India, or this or that, or you go to the mountains, and you have a really crummy time, right? And other times you're doing something that's not particularly special, but you feel happy. You feel like satisfied and secure. And other times you go through such endeavor and you don't get the results you thought you were going to get. I give this example a lot. I remember when I lived in Colorado, getting on a plane one time, flying to Los Angeles, there was a big billboard and you got on the plane that said, you know, enjoy LA. And then get to Los Angeles and there was a big billboard that said, enjoy Hawaii. And then a few years later, I was in Hawaii, and I got off the plane, there was a big sign that said, Ski Colorado, which is where I started from. So I say, what is this? You know, I mean, it's always like this expression, the grass is greener on the other side of the hill. So this is the nature of, you mentioned today, and I was surprised, because sometimes when I speak to a crowd that wasn't raised in America, and it's old too for even, I don't know, some of the younger people that were raised here. Raise your hand if you're familiar with Wizard of Oz. Okay, two of us. Yeah, Wizard of Oz, you know that story? Wizard of Oz? Okay.
First color movie.
What's that?
Was the first color movie.
Yeah, it was. Yeah, they colored it. Yeah. Anyway, we can say later. It's a small one. She had the red shoes all along. All along, she had the red shoes. All along, she had the red shoes, and that was her way out. But she didn't realize it. So, as souls, Krishna is described. He's in the heart with each and every one of us. In the Upanishads, it's described there's two birds in a tree. We talked about this a couple days ago. Two birds in a tree. One of them is trying to enjoy the fruits of the tree. The other one is just sitting watching. So this analogy that's given about us, we're in the tree of this material body, this material world, trying to enjoy material experiences. Some of them are very sweet. Sometimes you win the lottery. And sometimes you get a letter from the IRS. Right? Sometimes you get a raise. Right? And sometimes you get a pink slip. Right? Sometimes they welcome you to the office and everybody salutes you at the door, and the security guards there offering due respect to you as a senior person at the company. Sometimes that same security guard is there with a box. And he goes with you to your desk and he says, okay, fill it up. Everything here that's not your property, it's owned by them. You can take your pencil with your name on it. That's all you can take. The rest of it belongs to the company. And that same person that welcomed you every morning with a big smile on their face for 10 years walks you to the door and takes your keys and says goodbye. You change the code. This is the nature of this world. So why is that? I mean, a lot of people, they don't ask. They just don't ask. And we live in a culture where people are not encouraged to ask questions like that. They're just not encouraged. You're 14, you said? So you're in 9th grade? So in any of your classes, your teacher asks the question, why are we here? You can think? Not really. Any of them ask, like, why is it that some people are happy, some people are unhappy? In your science class, do they ever ask, why do people have to grow old and die? No, they don't ask those questions. You know? Again, experience had a big impact on me. I've told this story so many times. I studied political philosophy in the university. It was looking at different systems, how human society can be organized. And Locke had his theories, and Marx had his theories, and Machiavelli even had his theories, and Hobbes, and all these great, Aristotle and Socrates, all these great people had other systems. So after 2 years of study, I was speaking to my very favorite professor. He was a very brilliant man, a very good teacher. And I told him, I said, after so many years of studying, it seems each of these great philosophers, they have the first 20, 30 pages of their theses, they state their assumptions. Human beings are like this, therefore we should be organized like that. You know, Marx says we're all in class warfare, therefore communism. Locke says, no, we're all individuals running around the world fighting with each other, so therefore we need limited government. So I asked my teacher, I said, shouldn't we be discussing the truth of their assumptions? Reasonable question. And he looked at me incredulously and he said, we're not here to discuss truth. And I just thought, well, then what am I spending, you know, back in those days, $10,000 a year paying you to teach me anything if we're not going to discuss whether it's true or not, whether it works, is it? So I think it was Socrates that said the unexamined life is not worth leading. So our culture is based on encouraging people to make those, like in the video, to be self-reflective, to think, you know, how are we doing, how we can do better. In the same way to ask, why is the world like this? Why is it functioning like that? And asking those questions. So here in the Bhagavad Gita and the Vedic literatures, and to some extent every religious tradition in the world that people study carefully, Krishna is saying that when you actually have real knowledge, you understand why you're in the material world, why there's suffering in the material world, why there's death in the material world. Again, my own experience, and it come from a different culture, maybe it may be different in your families, but I remember at like our family holidays one year, sometimes like one year, remember my favorite aunt passed away. We weren't very religious, but Christmas was the main holiday everybody celebrated. And one year she just wasn't there. Actually, you know what? Can we do that later?
Yeah. So much noise.
Can we do that later? Because it's not so much to serve out. I'll personally help find the spoons if we can wait and do it later. Can we tell Monty? Yeah, because I was the youngest of 3 children. You know the disadvantage of that? You can't do your homework when there's noise. I have 3 grandchildren. Sometimes we go over there and like, now they're in college, but they're doing their homework. There's so much noise in the house, right? One's playing the piano, one's doing this, whatever Alexi is making some noise and their mother's cooking and I'm like, right? And they're sitting doing like trigonometry. I'm thinking, how do you do that? Because when I was young, again, 3rd child, everybody was gone. It was deadly silent. I need quiet. So some of you may be some background noises, no problem. But for me, I have this curse. I can't think very clearly with background noise. So these questions are meant to be asked. And Krishna's explaining in the Bhagavad Gita, when we really acknowledge, when we've actually found the answer to those questions, we understand, okay, I'm the soul, sitting with Krishna, sitting with the Supreme Lord, my eternal best friend. He's allowing me to play in this material world, but I'm realizing it's not a nice place. At the very best, it's mixed. At the very best, it's mixed, you know. You get a nice job, and it's okay for a few years, and then the company goes bankrupt. It happens all the time. You know, where you go, again, you go on a nice vacation, and after a period of time, they tell you, okay, your reservation's up. You got to leave, whether you want to leave or not. You're young and you enjoy playing a lot of sports, and one day your knee doesn't bend that way anymore. Right? Like they have an expression, tennis. Anybody, any tennis players here? The expression, tennis elbow. You've heard that before?
Oh, yeah.
Tennis, it's like when you wear out your elbow playing tennis, you can't play tennis anymore. So the same thing that brings you happiness causes some distress. It stops you from that source of what you think brings you. It's like, this is like crazy. This crazy world. Why is it like that? So Krishna explains, because it's an opportunity for us to act out our desires of trying to enjoy things in this material world and simultaneously realize, you know, it doesn't work. It's really not working. Is there any alternative? And that's where spiritual presence comes in. That's why, as it's described here, that's why Jesus came and why Prabhupada came to the West and why so many different saints, and Krishna says in Gita that he comes again and again and again to reestablish religious principles, to give us all an opportunity to know that we're not using our time wisely. And a lot of people think, well, you know, come on, this is too much, let's just get on with life. But then meanwhile, life is getting on. Tick, 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 tick. And at one day, it's over. Nobody can deny that. We have a limited time here. And we have a choice of how we're going to use that limited time. So, bhakti is so beautiful because it says, use your time, go to the beautiful beach, go to the wonderful mountains, go to LA and Hawaii and back to Colorado. You can do all those things, but add Krishna. And gradually by doing that, we realize the adding Krishna part is the part that actually is the pleasure. It's kind of like inconceivable for our materialistic mind, because we've been kind of programmed through the modern culture to think the more money you have, the bigger house you have, the better looking you are, the more beautiful you are, the more money, saris, whatever it is, then those things will make us more happy. But even they've done scientific studies. You can look them up. I've read a few in recent years about how if people don't have the basic necessities of life, they don't have a roof over their head, they don't have food, they don't have clothes, like that. To get those things, their level of happiness definitely goes way up. To go from hungry to not hungry, there's a major change in one's consciousness. Once you reach like a minimum level, you know, to go from whatever, a 3,000 square foot house to an 8,000 square foot house, your happiness does not go up 2.5 times. It doesn't work like that. Although the society at large is telling us, no, that's how it works. right? Bigger is better. So I fused in the 70s, a woman wrote a book called Small is Beautiful. It was a revolutionary book because it was going against this whole, especially American, Western culture, consume, consume, consume. And in India these days too, consume, consume, more and more. Right, you go by and you see these advertisements, these big, you've arrived. And they show like a young, attractive couple like in the 30th floor looking out of their condominium for how many crores of rupees or how many lakhs of rupees. And everything's fine. But what they don't show you is the slum at the bottom of the 30-story building right outside the door. Isn't it? They don't show that in the promotional pictures. They don't show you that. Same thing in other parts of the world as well, but in India it's so stark. So Krishna's making this point after many births and deaths, one surrenders in him, and Kunti Devi is making this point more directed to us. Krishna's like speaking in general. In Prabhupada's book, he's really driving this point home for us. We have to be careful that we are making progress towards, as he describes it, the lesson 12. Go back to that report. A suffering man, if he is pious at all, prays to the Lord for his mercy. But as soon as recovery is over, in most cases, the suffering man no longer cares to keep any connection with the Lord. The mercy of the Lord is open for him, but he is reluctant to receive it. So, in the Christian tradition, there's one parable or story that Jesus tells his followers about a man who's sowing seeds on the ground. And he gives an example. Sometimes the seeds fall on the stones and they can't take root. Sometimes they fall amongst the weeds and the weeds come up and choke them off. Sometimes they fall on the bare ground and the birds come and they eat them and take them away. And sometimes they fall on fertile ground. So the same way, all these wonderful instructions are there for us. We pray that we can be fertile ground, that we can take it very seriously to our hearts. So we know we're mixed devotees. We have, we're not pure devotees. We're not convinced Krishna's position. We're not totally surrendered yet. But we want to try to make progress towards that. And we want to try to see that I don't want to be, like they say in English, right, a fair weather friend of Krishna. Because it's even described that if you want anything in this world, even liberation, Krishna gives that very easily. Of course, we know it's not easy. You have to work for anything in the world. But it's described, he actually gives that easily compared to if you want him. If you want pure, that's difficult. Because that means he becomes your property. And we see that with Kunti is glorified, and with Damodar month we talk about that. How Yashoda is there, the picture here, right? I mean, Krishna's God. He enjoys these relationships with devotees in different ways. So when Yashoda decides he's been naughty and she's going to tie him up, he's the Supreme Personality of God, and so he's like, you can't tie me up. So the rope's 2 inches too short. So then she goes and gets more rope. It's like, you can't tie me up. It's still 2 inches too short. I think she goes the third time, still 2 inches too short. I think Prabhupada describes she's perspiring, and Krishna says, okay, you're my mother. You want to tie me up, I'll let you tie me up. So it's infallible. How is this the Supreme Personality of God, from whom universes come out of the body of his plenary expansion, and yet he allows himself to act in that capacity with Yashoda? And sometimes I think myself, well, even if Krishna consciousness isn't true, I can't imagine anything more far out than what we teach, right? It's like, the idea, a lot of people, right, like scientists sometimes they say, we're looking for that formula, that mathematical formula you can put on the front of a t-shirt to explain reality, right? And there's just a bunch of laws, unconscious laws that have been interacting together and created the universe. And you hear for a few years and then it's gone and it's over. And I had a friend of mine years ago, before he was a devotee, was talking about, in science, like the matter, the transformation of matter, and it's never completely eliminated, it just changes form. There's some law
Conservation of energy.
Conservation of energy, right? It's like, once it exists, you know, this microphone stand will always exist. It'll change forms, it'll rust, it'll go into the garbage dump and break down into atoms and molecules and all that, but it'll be something else. So a friend mentioned one time, he said, "You've heard of that law?" I said, "Yeah." He said, "What about conservation of consciousness? If matter continues forever, what about consciousness?" Which made me really think, because I thought, well, everyone's telling me when you die, it's over. But as Krishna says in the Gita, we've changed bodies so many times in this lifetime. I remember when I was 14. I don't remember when I was 4, but I remember when I was 14. Good luck. Have a good time. I'm sure you'll get through it well. I remember that. So, but my body's completely changed. If my 14-year-old friend saw me today, "You're not my friend, forget it. You're just an old guy, get out of here." And so the body's changing, the mind's changing some, but I'm still here. It's Krishna's first teaching. So we have this understanding, we see this, the conservation of consciousness. So then what am I doing here, going through this temporary place, trying to get some temporary satisfaction that doesn't work anyway? It doesn't work anyway. And if we want to ask, well, no, but it works, then you go back. I was looking, you probably all of it, maybe you're all better yogis than I am, but sometimes I fall into the trap, which we hear about people do all over the world every day. You know, you're doing something you need to do, and you research something about Google. You go on Google, right, and you ask a question, and then it shows you 50 other questions. And you're like, "Oh, I didn't know that," so you click on that one. "Well, why did this happen?" You know, you click, "Well, what happened to her husband?" "Well, okay, that's interesting." And you click onto that one, that one, that one. You go to this, and just the other day when it's like some famous actress or something, that for me it's like I just remember a famous person, beautiful person, big movie star. But I didn't know she went through a period of time when she was struggling with drug addiction and alcoholism, and her 2 front teeth fell out. Like, well, that's interesting, right? Or you read about the newspaper, you read about somebody won the lottery, and then you go back and do a little bit of research. What happens to people that win the lottery? Most of the time their lives fall apart. Their lives, it's like, wow, I won $10 million. See the billboards, right? $60 million, $400 million. You think, oh my gosh, is that going to make me happy? Those people usually, they become very miserable. A lot of times their children get into drugs and all kinds of problems, and people call them up that they haven't seen from high school 30 years ago and say, "Hi, it's me, your best friend. I'm so happy to see you again. Can you buy me a boat?" Right? Things like that. So there's so much evidence. There's so much evidence. So Kunti Devi here is explaining that we should endeavor, Prabhupada's explaining based on her verse, we should try to take advantage of the process that's given by, especially for this age, Lord Chaitanya, chanting the Hare Krishna mantra. We should try, if we're not doing it now, we should try to get some beads and chant on a regular basis on our beads, of course, offer our food, try to read the Shastra. And gradually, as Krishna explains, we become more and more convinced that He's the goal. And when we become convinced that He's the goal, one nice thing about having a goal, nothing else bothers you. It just bothers you less and less and less. Like, you lose your job, okay, Krishna's arrangement, He must have some plan. You get a raise, okay, let me look for an opportunity to serve Krishna better. You get a good teacher in one of your classes, it's like, oh, thank you, Krishna. You get a bad teacher, you probably have 1 or 2 of those in your school career. And it's like, oh, this boy I'm going to put up with. Okay, thank you, Krishna, so allow me to become a little tolerant. So we can see, we gradually start to see everything in that context. And then, and we gradually, as Krishna says, we realize and we develop more and more faith. It's like the goal is so clear, what happens here is not so disturbing. So this is the guarantee that's given by the great acharyas of the tradition. It's the guarantee that's given by Krishna. It's the histories we read of the pure devotees. And gradually we realize this ourselves. And as we do, and it's described, our life actually begins. Then we actually experience the joy that we thought we would get out of material sense gratification, but didn't work out. And much higher, much deeper pleasure. And it's a gradual process. It takes a little bit of time. But Krishna's there and He helps us. So those are just a few thoughts on some very, very important verses in the Bhagavad Gita and the Bhagavatam. Thanks for allowing me to share some thoughts. Any questions or comments? Yes, Pandit Srivas.
Comment and then question. So, your last point, you said like, okay, something is not necessarily as per what we want it to be, wish it to be, and then the understanding over there is tolerance. But then, if you read the Bhagavad Gita, then Arjuna is saying, hey, you know what, I want to fight, I would rather tolerate this, and be a beggar. And Krishna is saying the exact opposite. Like, so at what point of time in our lives do we make that switch? That, okay, this is where I need to tolerate, and this is where I need to fight back and not tolerate it. So how do I understand
Specifically in the context of fighting back, or more in the context of taking action?
Taking action as in no longer tolerating whatever injustice is being inflicted on
Oh,
me.
injustice is a whole different thing.
Well,
I
all that
wasn't talking
situation.
about it, I'm just talking about, you wanna go to the park and it rains.
Sure.
Or, you know, you went to a party and you got there too late. Where is he? Where's Pajuna? He's outside. You got there too late. He was telling us how much he liked pizza. You go to the party and all the pizza's gone. Right? Now, materialistic mentality is like, oh, I didn't get the pizza. I'm mad, I'm angry, I'm upset, I'm going to feel bad for 3 days. But spiritual mentality is, okay, I missed the pizza. So that's Krishna's arrangement to help me learn to be a little detached from my tongue. There'll probably be more pizza tomorrow, and there must be something for me because he always takes care of me. So that's what I was talking about. Injustice is a different thing.
Well, but then even staying with the pizza example,
Okay.
would it not
And
be
don't
better
talk too much about pizza because then they're going to want to get the prashadam.
Would it not be better for me to then say that, you know what, this is an offering that was supposed to be made for the Lord, why should I tolerate a bad pizza? Because, you know, that is not the right way I need to make that offering, and therefore I need to either change that pizza, get a different pizza, whatever.
Okay, like laissez-faire mood towards our devotion.
Right, right,
Well, okay, good. That's a nice thing. That's also completely different.
right.
We should be, like you described, we should be very tolerant of others, but we should be very, demanding is not the right word, we should be very rigid, strict with ourselves, as much as possible. You don't want to beat up yourself and become discouraged. But we should be, the tendency is, we all have this tendency, we see the faults in everyone else, but we give ourselves a sense of, you know, what could be done. Braj Bihari Prabhu, who teaches conflict resolution, he describes it in this way, that I know my intention, but I don't know the impact it has. And I know the impact what you do has on me, but I don't know your intention. And the assumption often is, well, my intentions were good, so if it had an impact on you, get over it, right? And if you did something that had a bad impact on me, obviously you're ill-motivated, and I should be upset with you because you obviously knew the impact it was going to have upon me. You know, you knew I liked pizza, and you took the last piece before I came. Obviously, you intended to hurt me, because I know the impact, but I don't know the intention. Maybe the intention is, no, actually I wrapped up that last piece of pizza because my little brother is homesick and he loves pizza, and I thought it would cheer him up. And I didn't eat anything because whatever. So we have to be very careful about impact and intention. And with, in terms of our relationship with Krishna, he's very tolerant, he's very forgiving. I mean, if we're all honest with ourselves, we'll recognize that Krishna is very tolerant, very forgiving, because he lets me, in terms of all of us, be here. You know, you mentioned, like, I've been practicing Bhakti Yoga for 50 years now, some of us for 5 days, some of us for 14 years, whatever. So, but Krishna's like allowing me with all of my imperfections, you know, with all of my shortcomings, all of the problems that are there in my mind, he still lets me serve. So he's very forgiving, but we should try to do our very best. And Prabhupada set that example as a chart. He was so very detail focused, very forgiving, very tolerant. I've heard Hari Story Prabhu was mentioning that if you made a mistake, Prabhupada was very forgiving the first time. If you made a mistake the second time, he could be very heavy. You know, I've explained that, I showed you that, I instructed you that, and you know, why are you being so unconscious, so lazy? You're dealing with Krishna. So we have to remember, you know, we're dealing with Krishna, and we should think. That's why, you know, forgive me, the plastic bottles. It's like, gosh, you know, come on, how many times you got to figure this out? It's Krishna's planet. So, you know, we should kind of hold ourselves to a high standard. Be very tolerant, very flexible, very supportive, very loving of others. Again, you know, be a little kind to ourselves too. We don't want to discourage ourselves, but push ourselves to come to a higher level and to be attentive to details. There's a beautiful lecture Prabhupada gave. He talked about being daksha, or being expert, and how as Vaishnava, it's not that we think, okay, now I'm a devotee, now I care about the spiritual world, who cares about material things? I don't care about material things, I'm a devotee. Prabhupada said, what material? He used that expression, what material? You're a devotee, there's nothing material. It's like, this is Krishna's microphone stand. This is Krishna's table. How can I not keep this table clean? It's Krishna's table. So we should try to see like that. And even ourselves, we take care of our body, we take care of our house, take care of our relationships, because they're all important, because ultimately they're all connected to Krishna. It's not like, you know, you become a devotee. Sometimes they talk about in the early phases of our Krishna consciousness, sometimes we get struck by pure devotee syndrome, PDS. And we think I'm so pure, like, you know, whatever I do is so pure, and I'm so, but no, we should think, you know, I'm a humble servant, and I have to treat others with respect. I'm so pure and you're so fallen, you know. And then how can you do all these nonsense things? But no, we should, I'm the servant of the servant of the servant of the servant of the servant, Lord Chaitanya said. So, strict with ourselves, lenient with others, and very attentive to detail in what we do for Krishna. Or else, we're not really understanding Krishna's here. It's like sometimes, you know, people, even happens in our temples, you know, but, you know, people go to church and they're in the church and they're praying all the time, then they go outside and they smoke a cigarette. It's not uncommon in our temples. You go outside, there's a bunch of cigarettes in the bushes, right? They could control themselves for an hour, but now they think, okay, so, you know, they're making some progress, but, you know, we have to keep making progress. Krishna sees. He's very forgiving, but he sees also. Yeah. Other questions or comments? Anybody else? Yes, Prabhu.
One reflection, one comment. You know, you talk in Queen Kunti's, that verse 12 that you read, in the purport, Srila Prabhupada talks about the suffering man turns to Krishna, and then as soon as his suffering is alleviated, he forgets Krishna. And, you know, I remember listening to a class by Gauranga Prabhu, Chaupati Brahmachari, talking about how pain or suffering is actually designed, it's not malicious, imposed by Krishna, it's actually a wake-up call. And he gave the example of, like, if there's a hot, you know, pot that has been sitting on the stove, and you touch it, if you didn't have the pain, you could actually end up losing your hand.
Yes.
So that pain actually makes you withdraw your hand and go away. So similarly, the pain we feel in this world is actually designed for us to question things and turn towards Krishna.
Absolutely.
So it's not maliciously imposed on us.
Absolutely.
It's actually a wake-up call. So I thought that was a reflection. But then the question I had was, and I speak for myself, like, you know, I hear about the philosophy and, you know, read the books, and it makes sense, but it's hard to let go of matter, because I wonder if deep down the conviction isn't there that that goal is something better, so I can let it go, what I have.
Yeah,
Could you
exactly.
speak to that?
That's the whole process. In this verse we read, Krishna says, after many births and deaths, when we become convinced of him. And earlier, in the 10th chapter, verse 7, he says something very similar, and right along the lines of what you're talking about. He says, one who is factually convinced of this opulence and mystic power of mind, engages in unalloyed devotional service. Of this there's no doubt. So we're not convinced yet. We're just not convinced. I mean, Prabhupada talks about, the Shastra talks about great devotees, the deities talk to them. They talk to them. And we know the story of Sakshi Gopal, right? He got off the altar and walked halfway across India. So Prabhupada says the same thing. we too can see Krishna face to face. He says several times, Krishna will talk to us. So we're aspiring for that. Krishna will talk to us. But we're not convinced yet. So that's a twofold process, right? One, Ishopanishad, one who cultivates nescience and transcendence, knowledge of transcendence at the same time. So we're simultaneously cultivating knowledge that this material world is not such a nice place, and it doesn't make me happy, and simultaneously awakening our understanding of Krishna and Krishna's pastimes. So it's this gradual process. And sometimes we all know, spiritual life is not just like this, it's like this, right? We see that sometimes with people, I'm sure in our community here, sometimes somebody will come and be like a very important part of the community and very enthusiastic, and then you look up one day, it's like, they haven't been on for a few weeks. And sometimes it's a few months, sometimes it's a few years, and one day they walk back in again, Haribo, and they want to pick it up. And in our own consciousness, sometimes it's moment to moment, day to day, week to week. We're more attracted to Krishna, we're more attracted to material energy, we're struggling with some attachment or some problem in the material world. And that's okay, that's actually what the process is all about. Just like if you have some disease, you go to the doctor, and they'll tell you, well, it's going to take, 2 months to recover, and you're going to have some ups and downs. Some days it's going to hurt, some days it's not going to hurt, some days you're going to be able to feel really good, but don't push it too hard. So the same way, we're healing from illusion. And there's going to be some time for us to become free from material attachments. And again, that's the whole process of bhakti. I mean, it's like, we add Krishna. Prabhupada gives that great example. He says, from a perspective of pure knowledge, the whole world is like a bunch of zeros. Here's your money, here's your power, here's your fame, here's your beauty, here's your strength, here's your money, blah, 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 blah. Just a bunch of zeros. But if you put one in front, use your beauty for Krishna, use your knowledge for Krishna, use your influence in society, use your money, use your prestige, use your everything. We can use it for Krishna. Then it all has great value. So, who was telling me today? Somebody here, his wife's a fashion designer. One of the boys we were with today, their wife's
we were talking, not wife. We were talking about.
Oh yeah, okay, not wife, yeah, yes. May Krishna bless you. Happy. But like fashion designers, like of course, you go back a few years in India, like, any child tells their parent, I'm going to be a fashion designer. It's like, no you won't, right? But these days, much more liberal environment. But fashion designers, so use your fashion designer skills for Krishna. In Mumbai a few years ago, there was a big front page picture on the paper in Janmashtami. I don't remember the names, but there's a famous designer, fashion designer, a man, that one happened to be, and he designed the outfit for Radha Rasa Vihari in Mumbai. If you've been there, it's this gorgeous temple. He designed this outfit, amazing outfit, and they gave an exclusive to one of the big papers in Mumbai. On the front page, Janmashtami Day, that so-and-so famous fashion designer created this beautiful outfit for the deities of Krishna. So, use your talents in that way, right? Whatever. Prabhupada was very interested in encouraging, he started the Bhaktivedanta Institute, and he said, as scientists, you scientifically prove that God exists.
Okay, so I've got something to add on that.
Okay, please.
He asked how to think about it, right? So, one scientific fact that really helps me overcome materialism is the fact that atoms are 99.99999 out to 16 places empty. Okay, so they are overwhelmingly empty space. So effectively, everything that's made out of atoms is overwhelmingly empty space, which is everything. So everything really doesn't exist. It just barely exists, technically, when you go that.
Well, space also exists, but it's emptiness.
Yeah, exactly. So it's really, Maya is it's much more of an illusion than it really is there. Like, because when you get down to it, it really is empty.
Oh, interesting.
Yeah, that's a conscious thought that like a scientific basis, so it really helps.
Yeah. You want to add something to your own reflection to that question?
No, I this was good, and I love the healing from illusion phrase. I'm going to use that. Yeah.
And when you heal, it comes and goes. And I can say, I mean, you mentioned, okay, 50 years of practicing devotional service, and it goes by quick, but it is a fairly long amount of time. And when I was a bhakta, I recall Vira Chandra Prabhu, just remember his name now. He was a brahmachari, he was in charge of the kitchen, I think, and he left. In those days we used to say blooped. He left, like someday he just left. And like 2 weeks later, 3 weeks later, he came back to the Sunday feast. And we're all like, wow, so great to see you, you're back, and where's your sleeping bag, and where's your stuff? And he's like, well, no, I have an apartment. No, I don't bring my. We're like, wait a minute, but you're back. So you're back in, you're not out. That was the sense that you're in Krishna consciousness or you're out. And then as years have gone by, we've seen a lot of people, sannyasis, temple presidents, GBCs, senior Madhajis, Diksha gurus, leave Krishna consciousness. And in the beginning, that's like a major shock. Oh my gosh, how can a sannyasi give up Krishna consciousness? And then it shakes our whole faith, and sometimes people get very disturbed. To a Diksha guru, he initiated me, how can I stay in Krishna consciousness? He went back to Maya, materialistic. But you just hang around a few years, they all come back. A lot of those people that were GBCs and Diksha gurus and this and that, and a few years it's like, okay, another dose of Maya's medicine, and I'm picking up where I leave off. It probably describes what is in the Gita, that if one doesn't, after thousands of, how's it go?
Is that the one that you're talking about?
No, the one who's, you probably describes you pick up, you become 2% Krishna conscious, and next lifetime you pick up at 3. So,
it never diminishes. Is that the one you're talking about?
I haven't learned my
Sixth
verses.
chapter in response to Arjuna's query. What happens if I don't attain?
That's there too. Yeah, that's there too. So we pick it up. We pick up.
Right.
So just keep making progress. And we see with these people. Sometimes they'll. I mean, they go away for like 20 years. 20 years. That's a long time. Is 20 years a long time? You're 14. Is 20 years a long time? It's a long time. No, it's not. Not when you're 7. Mataji, is 20 years a long time?
Yes. No.
No, you say yes. I'm asking her. 20 years is a long time?
Yes.
I would say no. It goes like that. I just sold my car. It was 22 years old. New car, as far as I'm concerned. It's only 22 years old. Young car. Yes, it's a young car.
Just a name breaking news.
Exactly.
Yes, yes.
So I had a question on the comment,
Okay.
but unless you want to add to your point.
No, that's
Okay. So many months ago, I was in the class with His Holiness Anuttama Maharaj, and there was somebody who raised their hands asking questions, and Maharaj, I'm very fallen, I want to ask this question, I'm very fallen. And Maharaj stopped and said, in the age of Kali, everyone is fallen. And which was great. I mean, it was a great lesson in humility. And long story short, there were elements of like, look, none of us are really quote unquote devotees. We're all in the path, the process of becoming devotees. You're not one.
Well, we're all devotees,
Yeah.
and we've all fallen, and we're on the path of reawakening our connection with Krishna.
So, how do we hold on to this humility that look, we're not there yet. You're not there yet, I'm not there yet, none of us are here, right? And we are truly, at least let me talk about myself, I'm definitely truly fallen, maybe others are as well. So how do we hold on to this and at the same time just say that, oh, by the way, I am blessed with A, B, C, D, E, and F, whatever these qualities, these qualifications, these things, this clarity of thought, this acumen, I have chosen this path, so I am still somebody. And I am, how do you balance this?
So the first part is a wonderful story. In Los Angeles, I think it was the La Cienega temple. Tamal Krishna Prabhu, I still think at that time, maybe Maharaj, was asked to be, and this I'm not sure of the position, I think temple commander. And he said to Prabhupada, if you make me the temple commander, I'm going to become puffed up. You know, I don't know if I can have this position, I'll be puffed up. So Prabhupada told him, and I'm not going to get the exact details right, but you'll follow it. Prabhupada told him, so within this entire universe, there's one planet called Earth. Within the planet Earth, there's 7 continents, one of which is North America. Within North America, there's many countries, one of which is the United States. Within the United States, there's 50 states, one of which is California. Within California, there's hundreds of cities, one of which is Los Angeles. Within Los Angeles, there's hundreds of streets, one of which is La Cienega. On La Cienega, there's many houses, one of which is this house. You're the temple commander of this house, and you're going to be puffed up. So that's a part of it. We have to kind of, see things in perspective. And on the other side, to understand that the fact that I exist is, according to our tradition, the fact that I am an eternal part and parcel of Krishna. And it's described throughout the Shastra, throughout the Acharyas speak. I'm eternal, I'm full of knowledge, I'm full of bliss, and I'm pure. But I'm temporarily covered. And this is something we have different than other traditions. Some traditions say ultimately there's nothing. We say no, ultimately there's something. Some traditions say ultimately you're bad. You were, your great ancestors committed some sin. You're eternally fallen unless you're rectified. We don't exactly agree with that. We say no, we're eternally pure and we just become temporarily covered over. So that gives us the faith that actually this is my natural state. I'm just reawakening what's natural for me. It may be hard because I'm conditioned. I have so many bad habits and lifetimes perhaps. But Krishna says I'm his eternal part and parcel. I'm an eternally pure person. I like sometimes to think, I've seen bumper stickers sometimes on the back of people's car. God doesn't make junk.
God doesn't make junk.
Junk.
Okay.
Yeah. And sometimes I know myself and my own mind is kind of telling me, forget it, you're not qualified, you can't go on, you're too fallen. I think, okay, I may be fallen, but I'm Krishna's fallen. I may be a fool, but I'm Prabhupada's fool. I may be an idiot, but I'm Krishna's idiot. And sorry Krishna, you stuck with me. I'm just going to do the best I can. And if we think like that, then it's reaffirming. Okay, well, and we know. I mean, you showed us. You see these beautiful pictures, Krishna. He's God, but he's like walking up to his father, like with a few grains of sand, or a few grains of whatever in his hand. He's going to the fruit seller, and he's got his little palm full of grains. But she gives him a little bit of fruit in exchange, such insignificant, meaningless thing, and he fills her basket with jewels. I mean, it's phenomenal when you think about it. Like, on one hand, like I mentioned earlier today, okay, nice stories. These are really cute stories, like, the Easter Bunny. It's a cute story. You hide chocolate around the house. How cute. This isn't our concept of cute. This is our concept of the absolute truth. And if we study carefully, it's not just based on some sentiment. It's based on profound Shastra. It's based on revelation of great personalities. It's found in deep logic and so many other things. When we see like that, it's like, wow, pretty amazing. Like if you just ask somebody, okay, let's dream of what the absolute truth could be like. Okay, it's nothing. Who's attracted? And what's the ultimate reality? Is nothing. What's the ultimate reality? A few go to heaven. The majority go to hell and suffer forever. Because the ultimate energy is pretty cruel. Honestly, that's pretty cruel to make somebody suffer forever. Oh, the ultimate reality is you lose your identity and you just become one with everything, and there's no relationship, and it's just a sense of existence. That we understand. The same people that describe that exist explain that you fall down again because you're not satisfied. Or you go to, like Larry Shin was explained, you go to a realm where the supreme, ultimate, all-attractive person, probably describes it in another part of the purport here. Actually, it's really interesting. I don't know if I can find it. Oh, here it is, right there. This is like, it's amazing. You hear this, it's like, is that possible? Prabhupada says, Just as a devotee wants to satisfy the Lord in all respects, the Lord, even more, wants to satisfy the devotee. I mean, come on. We're like those little tiny atoms. Right? We're like those. I was looking out at the house, whose house were there today? They have like one tree in front of your house. No. Yeah.
With shower.
Yeah, like there's a tree. And I was thinking, I don't even know how many leaves are on this little tiny tree, 10-foot tree, right? 2-year growth in a suburb of Indianapolis and every other city in America. Even there, I don't know how many leaves are on that tree. Even that, I don't know. But a supreme source of everything, universe, like you look in the sky, sometimes you're out in the country, like you look at all the stars and think there's life out there and all those places. And the person who's created all that, he actually wants to satisfy me more than he wants me to satisfy him. I mean, come on. You know, Krishna has a Rasalila dance. He expands himself into multiple forms. Each gopi is thinking Krishna's dancing with me. He doesn't have to do that. Why does he have to do that? You go to the movie theater, they sell you a ticket. They don't sell you a ticket and give you free popcorn and give you like a 7-Up and make sure, send somebody in to massage your feet while you're watching. They don't do that. It's business. You pay this, you get this. But Krishna, according to the tradition, he wants to satisfy us more than we want to satisfy him. That's the nature of divine love. And that's what we're trying to become convinced might exist, does exist, can exist, and it's within my grasp.
It's like the nature between a parent and a child, the love between a parent and a child. Just as much as you want your children to have a wonderful life, he wants to engage with you in the same way. But it's got to be natural too. You can't force your kid to love you, so you have to come to him. So I see it.
Yeah. And he's patiently waiting for us. And we are patiently waiting for Prasad.
To Damodar Shtakam real quick then.
Okay.
And then, yeah. Well, let's thank Prabhu by chanting Hari Bol 3 times.
Hari Bol, Hari Bol, Hari Bol.
So, we'll probably just dive right into Damodar Shtakam. I think we're running already a little bit late. Would you like to sing?
I can if somebody else wants to sing. I sang 3 times in a row.
Okay, you can sing.
Your choice.
Okay. We all know how we're going to do the yes. So, Prabhu, where would you like to keep the over there? So, can you make space?